Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Health Movement Podcast. We're going to be talking about 10 laws of successful fitness. I'm Derek. I'm a two-sport collegiate athlete and a certified personal trainer.
I'm Tim. I'm a certified athletic trainer, nationally registered EMT.
And before we get started, as always, we are not doctors, so make sure before starting any programs or anything like that, you check with a doctor. And before we get going, we are going to start bringing on guests with our next episode. So we're starting to plan out certain people that'll hit certain areas of fitness or health, nutrition, mindset, those sort of things, so that we can bring you all different perspectives of all the stuff that we find important and they find important. So stay tuned for that. All right, so today we're going to be talking about 10 laws of successful fitness. Law number 1, the law of consistency, and why that is important. Tim?
Yeah, I mean, consistency is the most important thing for most things, never mind health and fitness, but success in your career, success in your family life, your social life. The consistency is really the most important piece to most of those aspects of your life. So you're taking it over to the health and fitness side, that's a big piece to success for anything that you're doing, whether it's in the gym or your nutrition, your hydration, just being consistent and trying to hit your markers day in and day out. That's one of the most important things that you can do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, one of the pieces of consistency they struggle with is they look at the whole thing and like, all right, I got to do this for 90 days. And they see it as 90 days and you don't. You do it day one. And if you can do it for a day, you can do it for 2 days. You can do it for 3 days. So you've got to be willing to make those sacrifices if you need to or whatever it happens to be. But you're not going to see the results you want if you don't have consistency.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like we were saying, it really is and it's a great jumping off point, right? I think it's the biggest thing that we can. It doesn't take talent, it doesn't take skill to be consistent, and again, that's something that we talk about a lot. But showing up and being there is half the battle, and doing that kind of stuff is really the easy stuff that you can do to build your skill, to build your talent, and those are areas that to really work on. That it doesn't take being on time, being consistent, being regimented. Those are all areas where you look at successful people, and those are traits that they all have, and I think those are things that really are a foundation level thing that you can do on a daily basis to really build success.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is one for me. The next one, number 2, is an area personally from my end of the spectrum, the injury, injury prevention, trying to prevent injuries and keep people from hurting themselves. The law of progression, right? Progression is, we're talking about a foundation level. You really need to make sure that people that you're working with, or if you're starting on a health and fitness journey yourself and you're not at a novice level, you don't want to start out like gangbusters, right? You want to start a small progression. And again, if you're new to this, you should find somebody that is going to train you and somebody that can help you and is knowledgeable to start you at your starting point. Everybody has a different starting point, and you need someone that's going to identify where you are, identify where you want to go to, and develop a positive plan that's going to get you there. So I don't know how you feel about that, but I mean,
I think it's huge. And like you said, if you need somebody who's done it before, you can always hop over to healthmovement.us and fill out that coaching tab if you're looking for any help. But the progression is huge. And a piece of that people miss is they're not tracking what they're doing. Where if you're trying to improve your strength, you need to know, all right, I did 10 reps at 135 pounds last week. I'm going to try and hit 11. And then you get to 12. And then the progression doesn't necessarily have to be more reps every time. Then you increase the weight, the resistance. You go up to, 145 pounds, and then you're only getting 6 or 7 reps, but you track that. And like we said in law number one, consistency, if you're consistently showing up and putting in the effort, you will see progression. But if you're not tracking that stuff, it's not going to make any sense. And I do see it also from like an injury and a recovery standpoint where I remember one of my many, many injuries, it pulled my hamstring and they were checking my range of motion and just working through that and charting how much better it's gotten over time. Whereas, it's not healed, you're upset, but you can see, all right, I'm getting a lot better. I have more flexibility. I have more mobility with it. So progression, I think, is huge.
Yeah.
And that brings us into law number 3, the law of adaptation, focusing in on your body's adapting to the demands that you put on it. I'll let you jump on that one.
Yeah, I mean, this one works both ways, right? Like it works for somebody that's looking for a change that is, maybe they have been more sedentary and haven't done as much movement. Well, your body is going to adapt. I think this is the other piece, is like people wanted to adapt in a week, right? And that's the other thing of the change isn't overnight, but the change, again, coming back to that first law, if you're consistent, we got Ralph in the background here. I don't know if you can see him, but if you're consistent, that's where you're gonna see that change happen over time. That's what we were talking about earlier. But the other piece to that is it works the other way. So if you're active and you've been active, and then all of a sudden you find yourself, maybe you switch jobs and you're a little bit more sedentary in your job, or you've been less active or more sedentary, your body's going to adapt the other way too. So,
Yeah.
And then the other piece is adapting your program, adapting what you're doing to fit the needs of what your goals are, but also the needs of what your body is telling you, and what your imbalances are, and what the areas that you need to work on are. And this is something, again, we've talked about before, but you talk about wanting to find an area to get to, and looking at, all right, well, if I'm working on, again, people love to work on what they're good at. They want the things that they know they can do and they're good at. So I know I can squat 300 pounds. I'm going to continue to work on just my squat. Where it's like, all right, well, what else aren't you working on? Well, maybe you're not doing enough mobility, or you're not doing enough of working on posterior chain, lower body posterior chain. So, involving your glute, involving your hamstring, those kind of areas where things tend to get kind of left by the wayside. And those are the areas that you really need to hone in on and work on. So you avoid injury, but B, also see the results that you're looking for. Look at, you looking for the success, and how do you measure your success? So those are all important aspects of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, you're right on all that stuff, mixing up the routine and everything. You're gonna hit plateaus if you consistently exercise the same way. And I'm thinking more of along the lines of a strength goal that you might have. If it's always, low rep, high weight, you're gonna plateau, and it's tough to get through that. So your body's adapted to that sort of style. So you have to switch it up a little bit, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is. And then you go back to what you were doing before, and you keep forcing your body to adapt to the stresses that you're putting on it. And even things like technique and form, doing something like a deadlift, holding onto the bar is once you get a lot of weight on there, it's tough. And it gets to a point where your grip strength is determining how much load you can put on there. Whereas if you get some wrist straps or something like that, then something like that. Sorry. If you get some wrist straps or something like that, it's going to allow you to get a little further up.
Well, and you talk about getting heavy weight on the bar, right? And how that's going to affect your movement. Well, this is something where the first rep, right? Your rep with weight, or the heaviest weight that you have on your bar, should look exactly like how that movement looks like without the bar, or with no weight on the bar. It should look exactly the same that rep to the heaviest rep that you do. Because if that's not the case, then you need to break it down and be like, all right, well, where's my breakdown? Where's my form breaking down? And a lot of the times, that's when you're going to injure yourself. That's when you're going to get hurt, is if you're not having consistency from no weight to full weight, right? And those are areas where people really don't really understand, like, it should all look the same. It should all be the same movement. And if it's not, then you need to back up. Yeah, maybe you can lift 300 pounds, but if you're not doing it correctly, you're going to A, create imbalances, and B, you're going to eventually something's going to break down. A link in that movement chain is going to break down, and you're going to end up with an injury of some sort.
Yeah. And that kind of, I'm going to introduce number 4 because it leads into it, and I'm stealing your thunder a little bit. But number 4 is the law of specificity, where you should be training according to your goals. And in thinking about that, you got to get ego out of whatever you're doing. It looks great to lift a lot of weight, but like you said, if you're training just to move a number, that's not really going to help you. If you drop the weight, if you focus on, all right, I'm doing curls now, I need to engage my bicep. I want it, the full range of motion. I want it stretched. I want to engage my core. I want to be in good form, and I'm not rocking back. I'm not getting my shoulders involved into it. I'm not using momentum. That's a huge thing. I mean, if you want to do negative reps, then you just want, you use a little momentum to get the weight up. But I'm just saying, in general, you want to be focused on training for whatever goal, whatever purpose you have.
Yeah, and I'll use running as an example. And running is something where, especially like a distance runner, you don't see distance runners that really focus on the strength side of things too often, right?
Yeah.
I think that's an area where there are pieces to that, and you talk about specificity, and then we also talked about adaptation and adapting what you're doing. Well, runners live here most of the time, especially distance runners. You're running in a straight line. Well, we're still rotational beings, right? There's still other planes of movement that you need to focus on that are going to help you in that running, still just in that straight plane, right? That frontal plane. And that's where it's trying to mix up what you're doing and make sure that you're checking all of the boxes that you need to avoid A, breakdown, and B, help your performance and help how you feel at the end of the day. And I think if you don't, and a lot of people don't really realize the connection between all of these areas, right? And really making sure that you have a plan in place to be able to work on those imbalances and work on those areas of weakness and make sure that you're hitting all of that stuff.
Yeah, I think, and I know for myself, realizing why I'm going to the gym and why I'm exercising, what outcome I'm looking for. Like, yeah, I want to get stronger. You want to build muscle. But I know I want to play basketball. I want to play softball. I want to do things. I want to be able to, have my son come play hoops with me. I want to be there. So I know, my workouts start with 15, 20 minutes of just soft tissue work. And that's made a huge difference. And I know, you have a limited amount of time, so that kind of cuts into some of the other things that I normally would be doing at the gym, but I can just adjust my programming. So I'm getting the same benefits from the strength training, but I'm also getting the benefits of that soft tissue work and in the mobility movement and the flexibility movement. And it's kind of, it's allowing me to do more because I'm not getting all those stupid injuries that I used to always get because I wasn't working out towards my goal.
I know I've brought up Mike Boyle a bunch on this podcast, but I think the other thing is Mike Boyle has said a great thing in one of his, I don't know if it was a podcast or one of his little clips online, where he talks about soft tissue work and like foam rolling and mobility work and all that stuff. And he's got a great rule of thumb that for any active person, you should add a mobility day for every decade that you've been alive, right? So 0 to 10, probably don't need any mobility days, right? 10 to 20, 1 day a week. 20 to 30, 2 days a week. 30 to 40, 3 days a week. So that's as you get older and as you age and you progress, those are areas that you need to really focus on. And as you get into the, I'm in my late 30s, you're in your mid 40s. Those are areas that over time you can feel that breakdown start to happen, right? And that's where people say, oh, after this age, you really start to feel this. Well, that's all. Yes, there is an aging process, but that is all subjective. Like that, it's all based on the individual. It's based on what you're doing to counteract those things. And again, we've talked about the other pieces that are involved there that don't necessarily affect you in that workout in that hour, that you're not controlling in that moment, but have an effect, right? That's your diet, that's your nutrition, that's your sleep, that's all the other things that we've talked about. And this kind of leads into the next law, which is the recovery law. But it's all intertwined. It's all connected, right? So that number
Yeah.
6 will kind of go right into that. It's the law of recovery. But
Number 5, yeah, law of recovery.
five, yeah, sorry, getting a little ahead of ourselves here. But
That's all right. That's right.
It's the same idea where it's you need to wrap all that in to be able to see that long-term success. And this is where you're talking about, oh yeah, you want to play basketball, you want to play softball, you want to do all these things now within this, you want to play with your kids, keep up with your kids now. Well, what about keeping up with your grandkids or being there for your grandkids and being there when you're 50, 60, 70 years old and being, you were just talking about that gentleman that you play basketball.
Oh yeah. My buddy Tom, who's going to be on the show. He's a doctor in the Harvard medical area, and he's 75, and he's still playing ball, and he is mixing it up with he's the first one to set a screen and throw some elbows, and he's at 75. And I hope in 30 years I'm half as active as this guy is, and he's never missed a beat.
And that's, and again, that's the aggregate. That's the consistency of your diet, of your nutrition, of living a healthy lifestyle, all coming to fruition of, staying moving, and then also having a goal to work towards, and where, having a direction is so important. And I mean, how are you going to know where you want to go if you don't know where you want to go, right? Like how are you going to end up at a place that you want to be if you don't set those goals? So having the goal, and we've gone, that kind of goes back to last week as well, the goal setting stuff, but that's so important to what are your why? What is your why? And
it is huge.
Why are we doing this? And that everything comes back to that.
It really does. And that's it. Understanding the importance of recovery is huge, because it allows you to continue doing the things that you enjoy doing. If you don't give yourself time to recover, it's not you're gonna get hurt. You're gonna have limitations. But it also doesn't allow you to get stronger, because you need that. That's when you get stronger, is when you allow your muscles time to recover and heal up. And we've mentioned it a bunch, but exercise, resistance training, that stuff breaks down the muscle. It tears it. You have little micro tears, and it's injuring the muscle. And the rest and recovery are allowing that muscle to heal up just a little bit stronger each time. So law of recovery is big. And the next piece, law of nutrition, kind of helps with the recovery piece too, allowing your body to heal the way it needs to. We've talked about this a ton, the 80-20 rule, 85-15, whatever you feel comfortable doing. You can't outwork a terrible diet. You really can't. You can, and depending on age, you could probably get away with things a little more when you're younger. But when I hear people talk about, I'm older now, I can't do that stuff, it sounds like such an excuse to me. You just have to figure out how to adapt and what you need to do differently at this stage in your life, which may sound difficult, but if you are always doing that, it's just part of your lifestyle now. You're just aware of what you need to do.
But that also goes to mindset, right? You're talking about somebody that says, well, I'm too old, or I'm too, I can't do this or I can't do that. And then it's like, all right, well, that's because you have predetermined to yourself that you can't do that. And this is where, I hate when people go, and I've gotten this a lot, especially when I worked in more of a clinical general population setting. I would get, the doctor told me I'm never going to do this, X, Y, Z again, right? I'm never going to run again. I'm never going to, well, maybe within a guideline or within a parameter, but those are things that I hate that blanket statement. I hate that, you're never going to do this again. Because barring like catastrophic injury, those are things that I've seen people that have had catastrophic injuries return to be able to do those things, right? And I think that these are areas where those people, they're normal people. I was just telling you about one of my clients that I had from one of my previous settings that had a severely traumatizing knee injury, and she worked her butt off to get back to where she was an active person. She was able to get back to, she still fought through setbacks and fought through aches and pains and some, some hard stuff. But she worked her butt off to get back to, to be able to the point where she could keep up with her kids, but also surpass her goals of, she wanted to get to be able to where she could do the things that she loved again. And she was able to get back to that point. And it's, a lot of it comes back to your mindset and your outlook and how you go about your day-to-day routine and push through things. And the biggest thing with adversity is how you react to it, right? How do you respond? And can you persevere? Can you be resilient? And that goes for injuries. That goes for, things, mental health things, social things. Like those are all, that principle can be transferred to any aspect of your life. And it's not easy. Like going through that stuff isn't easy. Like people have a hard time with things, and you can't, and again, everybody's at a different starting point, both physically, mentally, wherever they are in their life. And that's the biggest key is what is your outlook? Do you feel like you can change it through hard work? And what does that work look like? And start to map it out. And again, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have things written out and goals written out, it's gonna be an uphill battle.
Yeah. And I feel like we're going on a little tangent here. I don't even know which law this applies to, but I like what you're saying. And I think the mindset piece, we'll just add in like a law 6.5. You can't have crappy mindset.
Well, I think that's part of, I know it kind of wrapped into that, but the next one is, it kind of wraps into, so 7 is the law of accountability. That's kind of where we're going with that stuff a little bit too, is tracking your things, keeping yourself accountable, having someone that's going to keep you accountable, right? I think you do a great job of keeping me accountable for things on the podcast, right? These are things that, it takes a village to do these things sometimes.
Yeah.
You're not alone. Create a support system for yourself and surround yourself with people that are motivated, that are where you want to be, not people that are, doing things that that don't align with your goals or don't align with who you are as a person. And I think that can be hard for people too. It's something that took me a long time to try to figure out too, and it's hard.
It definitely is. And I think, like you said, having that person or somebody on your side who is willing, you have a true friend when they're willing to call you out on stuff that isn't easy to say, and they know it's probably going to upset you. But those are the people you need in your life. You need somebody who's going to call you out when you're not putting in the effort you say you're putting in terms of achieving some sort of goal. It helps, and everybody needs that sometimes. We all need a kick in the pants. It's not always fun to hear, But afterwards, you're like, you know what, you're right. I needed that. Like I'm not doing what I need to do, or I fell off a little bit. We all have our moments. Um,
And
but
I think the other piece to that is personal accountability too, right? I think
yeah,
people have a tendency to not hold themselves accountable. And I know that, again, I'm an offender of this myself, right? No,
he's
no,
talking to his dog right now, just so you know.
chewing on my couch.
That's not good. See, he's being held accountable. That's not allowed. Don't chew on the couch,
Leave it
Ralph.
in peace. Ralph. Sorry.
No, you're good. We're leaving that in too.
Yeah,
That works.
Ralph can make an appearance too.
Yeah.
So
Um, but yeah, the accountability piece is going to be huge. And one thing you had said, and sometimes Nick says I talk over you. I didn't want to do that, but it's the mindset where I can't do that, or I'm too old, or there are so many people who have already done it before. Like if you can even find one person who has done it, you know it's possible. So that whole I'm too old or I can't do it because I'm in my 50s or 60s or whatever, that's not a reason. There might be a legit reason why you might not be able to do something, but I don't like that one. So number 7 was the law of accountability. Number 8, the law of balance. This one I think is super important. That can get missed and lost as life gets a little crazy, as it always is.
personally, this is one that I'm fighting with right now. On my end, I think it's hard when you're working full time, and right now I'm in the midst of working a little extra, and we're going to Disney next month, so I'm trying to make a little extra money there. So it's but
Yeah.
then what gets lost is like, all right, well, sometimes I can fall off the wagon as far as being active and not being as active. We got a ton of youth sports and a lot of activities for my son going on right now, so trying to find the balance of all of that is super difficult. And I think one area where I could be better is mapping that out a little bit more, scheduling it out a little bit better, and trying to find a balance between my job, my personal life, my family life, and then also what we've got going on with the podcast, right? So
Yeah.
it's trying to find a good healthy balance and be able to give all of those things my attention, the level of attention that it deserves from me. And I think some of that is it goes back to routine and trying to develop a routine, which can be hard. I come from a background where my schedule used to be so erratic and all over the place, it was next to impossible to develop a consistent routine. So for me, it was easy to fall off the wagon and easy to make that excuse of, I just got too much going on right now. And I will tell you, and the biggest thing I hear from people, and I know I've said this before, is I don't have the time. And it is the number one thing that people use as, I don't want to say an excuse, but they use as a barrier to, and not just fitness and exercise, but a lot of
Just
things.
everything. Yeah.
And
I agree with that 100%. That's what I hear from people. Like, why don't you think you've achieved this goal, or what's standing in your way? Time is, I will say 95% of people will say that's one of the factors.
mhm. and,
Sorry,
and
didn't mean to cut you off again there.
no, you nailed it. You nailed it. And I think, I think that's what you'll hear from most people and especially like someone in our positions, because, and you don't have to be a parent for this kind of thing, but people who are parents, like that's a thing where I understand that and I sympathize with that, but it's something that you've gotta work around, and you've
That's
got to.
not going away, Yeah.
It is,
Well,
yeah, exactly.
you look at your day and you kind of break down where you have time to make different decisions about what you can do. You have to sleep, and you should be getting, I would say, a minimum 7 hours. I know that's not always possible every day, but 7 hours, that leaves you with 17 hours in the day, and you probably have to work 8, 9, 10 of those hours. So then you're left with, I don't know, 10, 7, whatever it happens to be, however long your work day is. You got to eat, you have practice, you got a game, you got something for the kids, you have an extra meeting. So you got to figure out how much time you have left to do the things you want to do, and then prioritize what's most important. you don't want to schedule every minute of your day. You kind of want to live a little bit, but you should know, like, all right, I have to work today. There's a game afterwards, and then I have a meeting, whatever, and I'm not getting home till 9:30. All right, well, I'm going to bed early, and I'm going to get up early, and I'm going to, go for a walk or go for a bike ride or whatever it happens to be. But you got to plan ahead a little bit.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I think this brings us to the ninth law, which for me is 100%. This is something that this goes beyond just being patient with what you're seeing as far as your change and your goals. But I think for me, it's I've learned a lot of areas. This is where being a parent has really challenged me and helped me. I go
Yeah.
back to, we just had flag football this morning, and it was truly a test in patience, right? And I think patience is that you need to be able to learn how to step back and really step out of a moment and be able to say, hey, this is what I'm doing wrong. This is something that I need to be able to recognize that I'm doing it wrong. How do I change that? And it's hard to do in the moment. It's hard to do when maybe you're in a conflict, or you're in some sort of problem area or issue, and you need to be able to say, hey, I need to step away from this and reevaluate. And in the moment is so hard to do for me, and I'm sure it's the
Oh, yeah, it's
same
hard
way for
for
other
everybody.
people. And I think I can learn from a lot of different scenarios as far as patients go. And again, I know it's the same for other people, but I'm just speaking to my personal experience. That's an area where, and this goes back to my fitness journey and how I started. And I was always a heavier set kid. I've always had a little extra meat on the bone, and I always loved food. So it's like I've had to have um, my own evaluation of what I want and what I want to do. And my biggest thing was I wanted to go for a week. I wanted to go for 10 days. I wanted to go for 2 weeks and start to see a difference. Well, that's not the case. You see your change. You see your change at 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks of consistent work, of consistent with your
Yeah.
nutrition. We're talking about, you've mentioned weight loss a few times. For me, it's a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I work out, I exercise, and I still don't lose the weight. Well, it's like, all right, well, you need to take a deeper dive into what you're eating, what you're putting in your body. And 9 times out of 10, that's going to be where you see your change, you see your difference. And it also takes time, and it takes time
Yeah.
to change and adapt. We brought up the adaptation earlier. It takes time for that adaptation to take hold, and you need to be patient and consistent and trust that your plan in place is going to make the difference. And that's the biggest key for any success is just having patience and trusting the process.
Yeah. I've spoken with a few people, clients that one specifically I'm thinking of, they originally said, the last program they had done with somebody, they had lost 40 pounds in about a month and a half, and they were psyched. And I'm like, well, okay, that's great. Like, why are you hopping back on the call? And they said, like, well, because I gained it all back. I'm like, yeah, well, it's not surprising if you're doing a rush job of something. If you want to lose 40, 50 pounds, like that takes time to do it right. You need to make adjustments. Your goal max should be like 2 pounds a week, which doesn't sound like a huge number. But again, if you're patient and you do it over time, if you're losing 1 or 2 pounds a week, you could lose 50 pounds in a year. And then how does that feel? Like maybe you're 33, 34. Would you want to say, all right, at 35, I'm going to be 50 pounds less. I'm going to be in better shape. I'm going to feel better. My energy is going to be better. Cognitively, I'm going to be better. Like, yeah, you want it today or tomorrow, but that's not realistic and it's not attainable safely. Um, the patient piece is huge. You got to have a good plan set up, and you got to know going in, like, all right, this is what I expect. And it's not a linear progression in terms of weight loss. Like, you're gonna have great weeks, and usually when you start off, you drop more because you're watching what you eat. You're better with your caloric intake, but you're also exercising more than you probably would or differently. So there's more calories burned throughout the course of the day. But it's just something where you got to be patient. You got to know that's the process. And if someone's telling you can lose 50 pounds in a month, that's not good. That's not good for you. It's not what you want.
It's not
Um,
sustainable and it's really not healthy.
no, it's not. And you're not going to keep it off. And again, you're just looking at a number. If your why is you want the scale to say a certain number, um, that's easy. Like, you
And
can,
and that's the whole thing is the patience piece is everybody wants a magic pill, right?
yeah,
Everybody wants the instant quick fix, and that's not how any of this works.
no, no. And I don't want to go into a deep dive of using medicines and stuff to lose weight. Um, appetite suppressants, things like that. And again, there are always circumstances that might call for that sort of thing. But if you're relying on some outside influence to control what you're eating or to lose the weight that way, the second you remove that influence, it all comes back. You have to learn how to kind of go through the process on your own. And that's the accountability piece we talked about. That's setting up a plan. That's being patient. So, and all of this kind of leads us into the last one. And I think this is the most important one, the law of enjoyment. You got to be enjoying yourself. If you're miserable, but you're in great shape, what's the point? Like, you've got to find a way to become healthier, eat healthier, but enjoy the process and the things that you're doing. Otherwise, it's never going to stick.
And that comes back to the number 8 law, right? Is the balance, right?
Yeah.
Is find that balance of being active, staying active, but also finding the things that you really enjoy, right? So if it's if it's golfing, you can maybe you carry instead of walk, or walk instead of ride, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or if it's I want to get back to running, but I have pain, so I don't really enjoy it. Well, start with walking, start with going on walks, and then increase your pace, increase your distance, and then work on some work on some strength, resistance training, and stay within the range of where you're comfortable and don't have pain, and then try to progress from there, right? And that's where all of these kind of wrap in together, and it all ends up with, if you're not happy doing it and you're not having a good time doing it, then you're going to be miserable anyway. So it's just find what makes you happy. Don't stick within your comfort zone to a degree, but then try to push yourself slowly out of that comfort zone and try
Yeah.
to find, and nothing good happens in your comfort zone, right? Nothing, no progression, no
Yeah.
growth
You
happens.
never learn if you're doing what you already know how to do.
So it's,
100%.
push yourself out of your comfort zone, whether it's sign up for that 5K, or, I want to join the pickleball league, or, find what makes you happy and what's going to keep you moving, and then, build off of that, and then create your goals off of it. All right, well, I want to do these things. Like you said, I want to play basketball. I want to play softball. I want to play, pickleball, or any of these other things. Like, those are spots where all right, well, how do I keep doing? How do I get better at it, right? You
Yeah.
have to practice it. You have to work on imbalances. You have to stay fit outside of those individual things that it's gonna help you to keep playing as long as you can, and feel as best you can.
Yeah. And the goal is to enjoy life. There's obviously stuff. You got to work, you got to do other things. But you want to be able to enjoy what you're eating. You don't want to look at a bowl of plain chicken, broccoli, and rice for every single meal and think that's what you need to do. And it's not. Like, you've got to find the enjoyment piece, and then that's where the consistency comes in, and staying patient and everything. It's a lot easier to be patient if you're if you're happy and enjoying what you're doing. And I know we talk weight loss sometimes on here, and I don't want that to come across as you should be at a certain weight for any other reason than you want to be as healthy as you possibly can. You want to feel as good as you possibly can. You want to sleep well. You want to be able to think clearly. One of the women I worked with, her daughter was getting married, and as the wedding got closer, her parents came to stay. In like the last week or two, it was just really tough staying consistent. She's like, I just can't do it. And she's like, but I know I can do it once the wedding's done. So I got this 2 week period. And it was funny because she told me, like, she didn't really put weight back on or anything like that, but it was more the eating. She's like, Derek, I can't think as clearly as I had been at work. And it was these little things you don't even realize are all associated with your nutrition and your fitness level and everything. So it's it's life is much more enjoyable when all those things are going the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where, I brought up to you earlier is I've got someone in my life that's close to me and my family that was kind of told that they had early onset osteoporosis. Not early onset, but like early stages of osteoporosis, right? And my suggestion to them was, well, and we know through research that resistance training is like the number one thing that you can do to counterbalance or to stave off osteoporosis and keep working on bone density and all those things. And this person joined a gym, got a trainer, someone that they were comfortable with, someone that they, in a place that they were comfortable and felt like fit them, has been working for almost a year with a trainer, with, doing resistance training, also, being consistent, and went back 2 weeks ago to their doctor, and the bone density test came back that the markers stayed at the exact level that they were previously. So there was no degeneration of that bone, no lessening of that bone density, which shows you that, like, it makes it so these things are possible. You just have to commit, and you just have to trust that find people that can help you and are looking out for your best interests.
Yeah.
And then trust that you have the right plan in place that's going to get you to the goal where you want to. And I think that's the biggest thing is finding people who are willing to help and are there to just help, not to grow their brand or grow their business or anything like that. Is you need to find the helpers. Mr. Rogers said, right? Look for the helpers. And
Gotta love a good Mr. Rogers reference and as many times as we can.
And the guy had something right. So, that's the biggest thing is find a good support system and create your tribe, create your village. And if you surround yourself with the correct people, you're gonna get to where you want to go.
Yeah, that's all. And one of the coolest things about that, if you start that journey, other people hop on too. The ones that you're closest with, that care about you, they see the progress you're making. They're like, oh, I can do that too. And then we're all just a little bit healthier, or a little bit happier. And I think that's kind of where we want to get to anyway. So it's important. It's important to do, not to get too mushy out there, but it's, at the end of the day, we want to be around the people we love and take as good a care of them as we can. So we got to take care of ourselves as well.
Correct.
All right. That kind of brings us to the end of our show today. I would like to thank everybody who's been downloading and listening. We're into 8 countries now, which still blows my mind. I don't know how people are finding us, but it's really pretty cool. And we appreciate the heck out of everybody taking the time to download and listen. We're going to start getting some guests on with us next episode when we get that going for next week. Fingers crossed. And that's it. So hop over to healthmovement.us. You can find out how to contact us on there. All the episodes, YouTube channel, all that stuff is linked through there. Other than that, I hope you all have a great day.
Have a great week, everyone. See you next week.
Yes.